Number two, I wanted to say, okay, you're doing good with funding, but we also want good policy with respect to water quality. So we took the recommendations from my blue-green algae task force, created a proposed bill for water quality reform. And this is a major, major piece of legislation that passed, so we're very happy about that. I wanted to make Florida one of the top states for teacher compensation in terms of the average minimum salaries. And we went from the bottom 25 states to, I think we're going to be in the top 5, when all is said and done with this. And so that's going to be a huge difference. And I want to commend the legislature. The way they did the salaries, I think, are probably going to be more equitable because it focuses on certain areas that have a higher cost of living. Their minimum may be $48,000, $49,000. Some of the more rurals may be lower. Everyone will do better, and I think it probably threaded the needle better than my initial proposal did. So thank you for that. We also wanted to do employment verification. So it's the first time anything in that line has come in this legislature here. And so I think it's a great first step. We look forward to working on that as we go forward. And then we wanted to reform Florida's onerous occupational licensing requirements to give people more opportunity, and they did that. And so we consider this a very, very successful session. Now, at the same time, we now are in a different world than we were just a few weeks ago, and we're going to be looking to see how Florida is able to respond to the COVID-19. Obviously, health and safety are paramount. But we already see that this is going to cause economic dislocations, and we want to be mindful of our fellow citizens. We're supporting things to do here at the state level. I know both of the leaders here are supportive of doing that, particularly for folks who are losing their jobs. The federal government, I know they're going to pass some relief, which is very, very important. But this is going to, we entered this session with unemployment going down to 2.8%. And now we're going to be exiting this on the back end of this COVID, looking at a different economic picture. I think it's one we can recover from. Don't get me wrong, but that is going to be an issue that we'll have to address in future sessions. So I just want to thank personally the Senate President and the House Speaker. I think that they have worked really well with each other. They've worked very well with me. They were able to manage their chambers, I think, very effectively. And I think if you look at the 2 years they've had, I would put their productivity up against just about anybody, in modern Florida history. So I want to thank them for doing that. I want to thank Bill. So before we came, I gave them some ceremonial gifts. So Bill, I was able, Bill's dad, late father, is kind of a legendary teaching pro. He's taught Bill a lot, and his teachings are timeless. But Bill has clubs kind of from his dad's era, and I've told him you need to update these things. So what I did was I was able to get a putter made for him, a Senate President putter, and hopefully that can be the start of a new collection for you. And then we got my friend Jose. We got a nice wooden baseball bat with a inscription for House Speaker Jose Oliva, and I think it was the quote, "Slayer of the healthcare industrial complex." So I'm not going to shake your hand, but I want to thank them both for not only serving Floridians well, but for being friends and great colleagues to work with. We got a lot to live up to, I think, in future legislative sessions. I want to give them a chance to say a few things, and we'll take some questions.
Great. Well, as I said upstairs, it was a tremendously productive session, and again, that success goes to the working relationship that I've had with the House Speaker and certainly with the governor. I can tell you I've worked with many governors over the past, 18 years, and this is the most effective, most collaborative, most partnering governor that we've had, and Governor, I think the success that we've had together bears that out. And again, Speaker, thank you for your work, and it's going to take you all a while to go through and see all of the things that we are able to accomplish, not just this session, the last 2 years for the people of Florida.
Thank you as well, Governor. I think that possibly only Jeb Bush can be compared to this governor and his effectiveness in just 2 years. His engagement in all forms of policy, his commitment to his principles and what he believes in has really been refreshing to be able to work with. I don't think that we could have done any better. I know that I could not have done better than having the Senate president that we had and having this governor. I'm very proud to have been able to have worked with him, and I'm very proud knowing that now once we go away, that Florida remains in good hands. It's unfortunate that my last memory of him will be him leaving me hanging just a second ago, but besides that, we're good. Thank you, Governor.
Great. Take some questions.
Will $3.8 billion, Governor, be enough in reserves to get Florida through this crisis, and do you foresee a special session?
I think we just have to see. I mean, there's so much unknown about this, so we're going to go forward. I mean, I've said so many times that we were rip-roaring along here. There's going to be Florida businesses that are going to take it on the chin because we're so sensitive to things like tourism. But once this passes, and it will pass, I think we'll be able to pick back up and start going. So it's unknowable in terms of how that will work out. But I think that the underlying strength that we brought into this will serve us well when we come on the other side of this.
Governor, the Senate President had said, and actually you can correct me if I'm wrong, that there's a distinct possibility that there could be a special session to work a gaming overhaul of the Seminole Compact. I just wanted to get your thoughts on that. I know that you were involved in these talks as well.
So yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely possible. I spoke with the chairman of the Seminole Tribe today, mostly about the health issues that we're dealing with, and as you know, I mean, they're a separate sovereign. When I did the bars and all that stuff, that does not really apply to them. They can do what they want, but they have ceased their bars. They have imposed social distancing, and they basically reiterated a commitment to doing and they have much more limited operations as a result of this, but they said they were going to put health first, and so I appreciated that. And then they did indicate that they would like, once this all this settles down, to discuss some of these issues. And so yeah, I mean, I'm all ears for that. I think we can get something done. I know Bill's worked hard on it, and it would be a good thing just to have some kind of some certainty on that and some stability going forward.
Governor, we had a very light veto touch last year. The Florida Tax Watch is suggesting vetoes upwards of $500 or $600 million to offset potential revenue cuts. What are your thoughts along that line?
So of course, I mean, I think that when you're looking at vetoes, there's some things that just shouldn't be funded, and that's an easy decision. There's other things that aren't the worst idea. Maybe it'll do some good, but then you say, okay, maybe I prefer some of the other stuff. And then there's other things that you really like, but in a different budget situation, then you may have to take a pass on. So we're going to look at it, and but I think it's safe to say that the vetoes are just simply going to be different today than they would have been had this budget come out 2 months ago. I mean, I don't see any way around that. But we're already looking at different ways that we can do to add stability. One of the positive opportunities with this, and it's not worth the problems, economic problems, but is the interest rates. So we're working to aggressively see what can be refinanced and see what we can save money on. And then there's also some other things that we'll look at. So we have tools at our disposal to be able to meet the challenges, and we'll just see how it looks as we get on the other side of this.
Pay idea at risk right now? Teacher pay at risk?
I don't think so, because I think that if you look at the different things that are out there, I can find you probably a lot of money. If you ask the average Floridian, trim this or trim the teachers, they would say trim this, trim this or trim environment, they'd probably say trim this. So I think that we're going to be good. But obviously, if this hadn't happened, we would have been smooth sailing and would have been looking to be able to do even more next time. So yes, sir.
On your, you have until Monday, I believe, to make 2 Florida Supreme Court decisions. Have you been able to interview all the nominees and everything that's been going on, and this whole situation disrupted that process?
So I have been able to do a lot of different things like interviews and stuff. I have not had time to really read all the opinions in the way that I think I need to, or the writing samples. And so I will most likely delay, under the state of emergency, that deadline probably push it back to May 1st. I think there's some great candidates. I'm not saying you could really even go wrong, but I don't think my time is very well spent right now. The court is functioning fine. For me to be taking my eye off the ball of the stuff that everyone's so concerned about, to be reading some of these opinions. And so I think that can happen in due time, and then we'll be able to make those selections. And so we will not be making the selections by Monday. I just don't see it as being practical given all the things we're dealing with as a state.
You talked about the impact of coronavirus on the economy and like the outsized impact on Florida, which relies on tourism a lot. There are a lot of people who are losing jobs. Some municipalities like Miami have put a moratorium on evictions. Can you talk a little bit about if that's something the state would consider statewide?
Yeah, I would. I need to see what my authority would be, how it would work. I think that shutting people's power off, which I think most of the utilities have said is not going to happen, we need to cease that. Now's the time that if we're telling somebody that if you're sick, don't go into work, and then they stay home, and then their business, something happens with their business and they get laid off, and then they can't make the rent payment. I mean, those are extraordinary circumstances. So I would be supportive of figuring out what I can do. We are going to look. We're also going to look to turn on through FEMA. There's some emergency unemployment triggers. I've been talking with Jared Moskowitz about that. So we're going to be seeking that, and I'll probably be submitting something on that very soon. So bottom line is, we have various tools at the disposal to help those who've been displaced, and we want to use them. I'm also going to look into Florida has, I think, generally speaking, justifiable restrictions on getting unemployment assistance. In other words, you have to show you're looking for work and do some of these things. And that's just a way so that, we want people to work rather than beyond this. In this case, I think it's such a dislocation that I think I can probably waive some of that, but we're going to be looking into seeing what I can waive to be able to get people cash in their hands who've been dislocated from this. And as I said yesterday, we're expanding the call center for the Department of Economic Opportunity. It's interesting as you go through these budgets and stuff. I remember bringing in Lawson. He's going through his different line items, showing where he could save money. And the unemployment part was like the place in terms of like the staff. Because it was under 4%, then under 3.5%, then even under 3%. And it was like there was just no business in doing unemployment compensation. So now we're in a different situation. So I've directed him to beef that up, and I think that they will. And hopefully with the round 3 in the federal, there'll be even more for the small businesses. We have the $50 million bridge loans. You have the SBA, but I think if they can do even more, you hate to see someone go out of business because of some external event that had nothing to do with any decisions that they made. And so keeping some of these businesses solvent for at least the short term, now that may make the difference about whether we can bounce back quicker or whether this would be more of a prolonged economic struggle.
Go
ahead.
Oh, why has the number of deaths been removed from the dashboard? And it seems like the dashboard is becoming less transparent. Can you address that?
I did not know that was the case. I'll ask them. I told them to put all the data out. I think that probably was an omission. I don't think that was anything that was intentional. We obviously want to be able to inform the folks about any fatalities that we have. And I do think it's important to let people know much has been said about how this virus is particularly detrimental to people who are elderly or have underlying medical conditions, immune deficiencies and the like. And that is true. And it's true that you're much more likely to suffer a fatality if you're older or have those conditions than if you're younger. But I think what we're starting to see is some of the younger folks, it can knock them on their butt. This can be really tough. It's not something that you want to be very cavalier about. You should still, for your own health, not want to be acquiring the virus. Obviously, we'd hope that you'd think of others in terms of what you're doing, but this is not something that you can definitely say is not going to be a problem for you. The fatality figures, I think, are skew older. There's no doubt about it. But we looked at those South Korea numbers, and I think the messaging had been from CDC and everyone that there wasn't very much to worry about. And I think we're starting to get numbers out of Europe now that would suggest you could be relatively healthy in your 20s and you could wind up in the hospital. It may not totally put you out of commission for good, but it's not something that you want to mess with. So let's just keep that in mind and understand we got a lot more to do. So we're going to be going down to Broward County. I want to thank everybody down there for working on this. We think that this will be hopefully a successful model that we could replicate as we get the more supplies throughout the state so that folks will be able to test. If you look at our numbers, we've had the increases, but this past week was less of an increase than the previous one was percentage-wise, and the testing has increased. But we don't know whether that's a trend or maybe just the tests weren't done in the right spot. So I think if we can just get more tests out there, swab people, get it done, that's going to really help us to identify the trends and identify the problem areas beyond, obviously, Broward and Miami-Dade. Thank you.